welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins me, and we're going to talk about NBA rookie extension candidates from Keegan Murray and Christian Braun to Dyson Daniels, and maybe even some Jeremy Sochan. We're going to talk about all the guys that were in the 2022 draft, first-round picks that are eligible for rookie extensions. We might talk a little bit at the top about guys that have already signed extensions like Chet and J-Dub, and we'll kind of go from there. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? My wife told me I needed to ask you if you're going to watch Task on HBO.
What is Task? Let's check out what Task is.
Yeah, I was hoping you would know because I mean, literally was just a...
Yes, I will be watching this. I do know what this is.
Okay.
I mean, look, this is extremely my shit. So, like, this is the guy who made... Do you remember the show Mare of Easttown?
No.
So Mare of Easttown was the show with Kate Winslet, where Kate Winslet was a detective in like Philly, like the Philly suburbs, basically. But like I don't want to go as far as to say white trash, but like under, very middle class to lower middle class, Philadelphia, exurbs kind of vibe, right? It's like kind of where Brad Inglesby grew up. And this is his new show where it's an FBI task force leader played by Mark Ruffalo, who is, I guess, chasing after somebody. And I will extremely watch this. This is very much my shit. And most importantly, the guy who wrote it, Brad Inglesby, has a connection to basketball. Bryce, do you know what it is?
No clue.
So his brother, Martin Inglesby, is the head coach at Delaware.
Okay.
Actually.
Blue Hens.
Yeah, the Blue Hens. Shout out the Blue Hens. Martin Inglesby's been around for a while, obviously. And I want to say that, like, if I remember correctly, Brad Inglesby, the guy that wrote this show, kind of grew up playing basketball as well. Yeah, interesting show, and I'm excited for it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, Delaware is there's a Chiefs connection with Delaware. I think that's where the GM, his name's escaping me right now, is that's where he played quarterback or receiver or something like that. Brett Veach. So yeah,
there
Delaware
it is.
Blue Hens.
I love it. Okay, so today we're not going to talk about Kawhi. I enjoyed Paolo like dunking all over the CEO of Aspiration on Twitter or X, the Everything app, hashtag the Everything app, as much as everyone else did, but we don't really need to talk about all that stuff. We got some new stuff, but we'll probably wait until midweek to kind of dive into that and see if anything new comes up. I sounded like Pablo's recording another episode. That does not come from inside information. That comes from just seeing the way he was kind of tweeting and everything. We'll see if that ends up being the case and we get some new info. But today we're going to do rookie extensions. Rookie extensions are one of the most fun things to kind of project and talk through, really, to me, just because it gives us a chance to kind of do what you and I, Bryce, love to do, which is talk about like young developing players in the NBA. Guys like Keegan Murray, guys like Jaden Ivey, guys like Jalen Duren, guys like Dyson Daniels and Jeremy Sochan and Christian Braun and whoever, right? It gives us a chance to kind of go through those guys and decide, okay, this is the first time that they're hitting not quite the open market as guys like Josh Giddey and Jonathan Kuminga have learned this year, but the market in some way, and we're getting a chance to see what their value is. So this is always a fun exercise, and I think this year, actually, I'm excited, I think, to talk to you about wondering if there's going to be a bit of a shifting paradigm in terms of the way that teams look at these extensions. So I'll kind of talk about what I mean in a second here. But Bryce, what is your, kind of thought as we start this exercise?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought that as well. I had this, obviously, this conversation has happened for months now covering the Pistons because they have two of these guys. And I mentioned today on a podcast that I was a guest on of, I wonder how things have played out with Giddey, with Jonathan Kuminga, with Cam, with all of these guys, if that's affecting what some of these players in this draft class are going to end up taking. Like, are they going to go, hey, looks like teams under this new CBA, the current CBA, it's not new anymore, if they're going to play hardball a little bit more, and if I'm not willing to bet on myself, if I'm not willing to do the Cam Thomas, am I going to be more willing to take a deal that's maybe quote unquote a little more team friendly? Or can I negotiate a shorter contract where I lock in some real money, but then I get to unrestricted free agency sooner? And so I wonder if there's some of those that come up in this conversation of, man, the team would really be giving up a lot if it's this number. The player would really be giving up a lot if it's this number. Maybe we can find a middle ground on a shorter term deal. And so I think this exercise, where we're bound to be extremely wrong on a couple of these, will be fun just to kind of see where we think the market is and then ultimately where the market ends up being for a lot of these players.
Yeah, so I think that where I want to start is kind of that, in terms of that paradigm, right? So there are two factors here that will really shape the rookie extension window this cycle. The first one is the second apron, obviously. Teams are getting more judicious with long-term contracts, it feels like, knowing that those deals are harder to trade. It's harder to get out of your problem deal now than it ever has been. The Rockets kind of got lucky with the Jalen Green thing, but I think that you can look across the NBA and look at some concerning deals that have been signed recently. I think the Emmanuel Quickley deal is not one that's looked upon particularly kindly, for instance, right? Even though Emmanuel Quickley is a good player, it just might not be $32 million a year good, right? So there's that piece of it. But the other piece of this that is really important to note here is we are still in the middle of these cap spikes where the salary cap is presumably going to go up somewhere between 7 to 10% every year for the next little while, which means getting a player on a deal right now is going to look pretty good probably for 2 years, I would guess. In 2 years, if you look at the deals that were signed today, like Trey Murphy's deal, for instance, he gets 4 years, $112 million last cycle, right around the deadline. And $112 million is a crazy amount of money. If you're Trey Murphy and you haven't stayed 100% healthy this year, you have to take this deal 100%. Even though we now look at this deal as oh my God, this is one of the best deals in the NBA. It's a contract that Trey Murphy had to take, I think. But because of the cap continuing to rise and rise and rise over the next 2 years, we're going to look at Trey Murphy and he's going to be making, 15% of the cap in 2028, which is just a crazy low number for somebody that I think you and I think has a chance to make an all-star team at some point. We'll see if that ends up being the case, but he has a chance at least to do that. So kind of the way that the push-pull of the marketplace goes over the next month or so with these deals as we try to see what NBA teams value. Do they value getting somebody locked in now because of those impending cap spikes, or do they go risk aversion mode and decide to maybe not give a not fully formed player crazy money? Because that's the other piece of this with rookie extensions. It's always so fun. Very few of these guys are entirely developed at this point. You're trying to project out, if you're an NBA team, saying, hey, Jaden Ivey is this right now, but in 3 years, he might be this, or he can be. We think he's going to be this. And agents play that same game, right? So this is why this conversation is so fun. There are so many layers. There's so many different things that you have to talk through.
And I think the other thing is I look at a team like the Orlando Magic and how quickly you can get expensive. And I'm
Yes.
not knocking the Magic, Sam, because I like the team that they have. I think they're a top 3 team in the East this year when we get into predictions. But when you lock in Franz, Paolo, even Jalen Suggs, even though he's on a descending, and then you feel like you have to go make a move for another player outside that young core. Now you have 4 players who not this year, I guess it'll be next year, are making 41, 41, 39 and a half, $32 million respectively. And it's okay if you're our top 3 in the East, but you've kind of locked in your 4 players. And so I just think you can get very expensive very fast if you give these guys certain contracts and they don't slot into the role that you sign them up to be.
Yeah, it's dead on. So thus far, we have 4 rookie extensions that have been done. The first one was Paolo Banchero, the number 1 overall pick. He signed a 5-year max. The max right now is currently projected at $239.9 million. Paolo signed the 30% escalator. If he was to make all NBA, he would get the full 30%. That can go up to $287.9 million. The Magic also gave him a player option, which I feel like is pretty wild, in all honesty. That was a surprise to me that they gave him a player option, given that they were giving him the 30% language. I didn't love this deal from the Magic, not because I think he's not worth the 25% max. I think he is, actually. I am a Paolo guy largely. I think that you can't give him the 30% max potential and give him a player option. You had leverage there to be able to, I think, get back that value in one of those 2 ways.
Yeah, we talked about that when it was signed, right? That one or the other, and especially when we look at, the other, ones we're going to talk about, where in OKC we feel like they got a little bit. It wasn't huge, but they got a little bit. Where, listen, I'm probably the biggest Paolo fan. I still see I hear a lot of Orlando Magic conversation where there's like more questions about who he is as a player and being the hub and some different things where, I don't know, maybe I'm just higher on Paul. Like, I didn't balk at them giving him this contract in general. It just seemed like a little bit much to give him both. If you're willing to give him those full escalators or whatever we want to call it, the 30% language, does he also need the player option, to get out of it? So while in general, I'm fine with it, it seemed like in a day and age where the negotiation is a little bit tougher between players, star players and their teams, he got like everything you would want and more. And that was a touch surprising. I assume it doesn't come back to hurt them, but you would have liked to lock in fully guaranteed years, no player option if you're the Magic in that situation.
Yeah, completely agree. The other 2 deals with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Jalen Williams, the number 12 pick in this draft, got a 5-year max after making all NBA this year. 5 years, $239.9 million. Williams's escalators are interesting, and I think he very clearly gave something back on this deal when he wasn't forced to. Look, if he wanted to walk into Oklahoma City and just say, hey, I want the 5-year max with 30%, I just made all NBA. Like, I am deserving of this. He easily could have done that, but I think he very clearly decided that I don't necessarily want to do that. The projected value increases to $249.5 million if Jalen Williams makes all NBA third team, $259 million if he makes second team all NBA, or $287 million, the full boat, if he makes first team all NBA or wins defensive player of the year. Then finally, Chet, he got 5 years max at just the 25 number. Great deals for Oklahoma City. It allows them to keep this core together. They don't really have to play the game of, if J-Dub makes all NBA, you're happy. If he's a 2-time all NBA player within his first 4 years, you're probably pretty ecstatic to pay somewhere between 240 to 260 million. And then Chet, you don't have to worry about the 30% max escalator. So it's an expensive team, but they just won the title, and teams get expensive when they win titles.
And I think for people, I want to make sure they understand the dollar amount. So just for perspective, Cade Cunningham got the escalator language in his contract for the Pistons, made All NBA this year, and he took up an extra $8 million in salary cap going into the 25-26 season. So like just the understanding of how much money that language will save the Oklahoma City Thunder if Chet Holmgren were to make All NBA, or, like we've talked about, 1 year where Wemby, or a year where Wemby doesn't play 65 games, and Chet is probably right there to become Defensive Player of the Year. Now he has other competition, so
Yep.
in terms of what they could be saving, it is substantial, and that's why we talk about it. We talk about it in terms of 5%. That 5% was $8 million in salary cap this year for the Pistons with Cade Cunningham, and then same thing with J-Dub. I think I would find it hard to believe he makes first team All NBA in a year that SGA is also fully healthy. But is there a possibility for third team? Sure. DPOY, maybe if Chet gets hurt or something like that. But again, you're saving a few percentage points. So you're looking at $5-6 million. Between those guys, Sam, you could be saving $10+ million on the salary cap. Yeah. Because you got this language, even with them performing at the highest of levels. I just find that very important for a team that's going to have to start winning on the margins when we talk about the salary cap and roster construction.
And then the final non-max that we got was actually Jabari Smith.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
5 years, $122 million. This is just like, we talked about this at the time, just one of the most fascinating deals that has been signed in the rookie extension window in a while. It's like $24 million a year. That deal, again, is going to be looked upon as fairly cheap at a certain point. You look at the extension number that has been done here, like he's going to be making 12% of the salary cap in 2027-28, basically all the way through, I believe. Like, it gets up to 13% in 2030, 2031, because they structured it just in a fascinating way. It's 23.6 in the first year, 21.7 in the second year, 23.6 in the third year, 25.5 in the fourth year. So there's a dip in the second year, I think, in order to potentially pay Kevin Durant if they need to, without hopefully, diving super, super deep into the tax, right? So fascinatingly structured deal, in my opinion, and a deal that is kind of a prove it deal for everybody involved. Prove it deals, I tend to be just a little bit skeptical of 5 years. But look, like, this is one of those contracts that has a tremendous amount of upside for everybody. If Jabari Smith ends up turning into like this awesome 4 or 5 who's like switchable and can play with Kevin Durant in smaller lineups and can play with Alperen Şengün in bigger lineups with Kevin Durant out there and can space the court and continue to be like a 37 to 39% 3-point shooter, as opposed to the 36 that he's been at the last 2 years. I don't know. Like, he rebounds the ball well. I think he's like a little bit overrated defensively in a team construct, but he certainly has really good ability to slide his feet. I can see a world where this deal looks amazing for a role player and like a starting caliber role player, or I can see a deal where like his handle continues to like drastically limit him in terms of being able to do anything on offense, and the passing ability just is kind of non-existent and the team defense doesn't develop. But again, like, Jabari Smith, extremely young, still just 22 years old. I think I'm willing to bet on the team defense. I think I'm willing to bet on like the passing ability. I think where I'm at is I find this very difficult to believe that it will be a catastrophe for the Rockets. But again, if I'm Jabari Smith and I've done what I've done in my career so far, I have to take $122 million. Like, there's no question about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the opposite of what I said at the top. He just locked in more years, right? Like, he didn't go less years. He locked in the full amount of years he could get and took 5. I think the more I've thought about this one, the total number seems like a lot, but when you spread it out over 5 years, I think I'm with you where it probably isn't going to be just a disaster, because I think Jabari Smith Jr. is obviously an NBA rotation player. I mean, if he ends up being like an 8th or 9th man, like obviously, like that's not too good. But I think Jabari's probably like I say 6th man. Like if he's like the 7th
As long
man,
as he's between 4 and 7,
yeah,
I
if
think
he's
is
the
the key.
7th man on the Rockets, he's going to be overpaid, but it's not going to be a disaster. If he ends up being the starting 4 man over the final 3 years of this deal, or maybe all of the years, right? Like, I don't know how that
Yeah.
roster is going to shake out, then it's obviously a really good deal. So I think it's probably fine. My guess on the most likely outcome is he never makes our worst contracts in the NBA long list, and he never makes our best contracts in the NBA long list. He's just one of those guys. You look at the Rockets roster and you're like, oh yeah, he's getting paid about what you would expect. And I think that's probably how it plays out.
I think I would guess right now that their starters are Fred, Amen, Kevin Durant, Alperin, and I think the 5th would probably be Jabari. If you made me guess right now, like I'm not sitting here with any intel on that, but like I'm sure that they'll go in and say that Dorian Finney-Smith can win it. I'm sure that they'll go in and say that, maybe Tari Eason can win it if he goes crazy in camp or whatever. Maybe they look at another backcourt player and Amen Thompson is kind of slotting in there. But I think right now I would say that Jabari is their starting 4-man, and that's where we'll start the year. And this is going to be a great team. And let's see where it kind of lays out and goes.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think if you asked me to pencil in their starting lineup, I think what you just outlined is what I would go with if you made me, with the understanding that, obviously a multitude of other guys could play their way into that. But I think if I had to here in the middle of September, put it down on paper, I think I would go with the same 5, which means that Jabari Smith Jr. starting 4-man for a team I think is going to be top 2 or 3 in the West.
Yep.
That's fine then.
It's a pretty good win. Okay. Let's get into some deals. But before we do that, we want to shout out our sponsor here. We're going to shout out the folks over at Trade Coffee, because if there is a group of folks we love here at the Game Theory Podcast, it is absolutely the people over at Trade Coffee. As the days cool down, my coffee routine shifts. Comforting warm mugs in the crisp mornings, refreshing iced coffee in the sunny afternoons. No matter the season, hot or cold, Trade Coffee is going to recommend the beans that I love, roast them to order, and deliver them right to my door. It is like having my favorite cafe on standby without having to leave my home. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S. for both hot and cold coffee drinkers. They have sourced the best beans from over 50 top roasters across the U.S. For cold brew lovers, they have teamed up with 15 roasters to create a special collection made just for cold brew. So every cup comes out smooth and delicious every time. They even have easy to use curated gear so you can brew at home with better flavor, and you can get better value than any cafe or bottled brew. Trades prices are on par with grocery store brands, but the quality is just next level. Whether it's that smooth cold brew that you need or a cozy hot cup of coffee to start your day. Plus, you're going to support local roasters with every cup. It's a win-win for everybody involved. You just take their quiz. They make it so easy for you. They make the decision for you. You take the quiz, and in under a minute, they're going to recommend the coffees that you love. If that first bag isn't quite right, Trade's going to replace it for you for free until they nail it. I have absolutely loved working with Trade. I can't emphasize enough how happy I am that they're a sponsor. It gives me a chance to try new coffees, and I'm someone that really enjoys trying new coffees, as well as giving me just a really, really high-level cup of coffee that I know that I can rely on every single morning. And again, you just take their quiz and you kind of get different suggestions based on how you are feeling at that moment in time. And, they make it easy for my wife and I because we have quite different tastes in coffee. It's just a fantastic, fantastic company and product. Right now, Trade is offering 50% off a 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/game. That's DRINKTRADE.com/game, GAME, to get 50% off 1 month. That's drinktrade.com/game. Okay, Bryce, we're just going to go in order of the draft, right? That's the way that this will be easiest to me.
Nope, that works.
All
for me.
three of the top three guys have signed deals. So
Yep.
we're going to number 4 immediately, and that's Keegan Murray. And Keegan Murray is one of the more interesting ones that we're going to talk about. Because I think there's a case that like he is one of the better players that we're going to talk about in terms of like winning basketball and helping a team win games, because he is a very real shooter. I know he only shot 34% from 3 this year, but like I completely buy Keegan Murray as a shooter personally. He has averaged 13.3 points, 6 rebounds, and shot 45, 37, 81 over the course of his 3 seasons of his career to this point. And yet, if you kind of look at the box score, it looks like he is kind of stagnating, is the way to put it. And it makes sense why that would be the case if you look at it from the big picture, which is, okay, older player, was drafted at 22 years old, and is just kind of who he was entering the NBA, right? But I think that's unfair to Keegan, and I think that's kind of the wrong way to look at this. And I think you really have to look at the way that the Kings have built this roster and have, I don't want to say screwed him, because I think that would be wrong, but they've never given him as much of a chance to play with the ball in his hands is what I think I've actually liked when I've seen him do it from time to time. Like in his second year, I think his second year was his best season. He combined the defense with being able to get some shots here and there. He averaged 15 points on 45, 36, 83. And I thought he looked like he was kind of on the Trey Murphy trajectory at that point, where, okay, he's like continuing to grow. We're starting to see him like come off of flare actions and then attack the rim. He can come off flare actions and obviously knock down threes. Then this year, it was just messy because they bring in DeMar DeRozan, and that takes up kind of all of his on-ball usage next to De'Aaron Fox, next to Domantas Sabonis, who we know are going to have the ball in their hands quite a bit. And it just felt like Keegan didn't get as much of a chance to really rock. And yeah, you can look at the percentages and they dropped. And, I think that he went through like a pretty real slump there, if memory serves. But at the same token, I definitely think there's something here. And I think that when it comes to a guy that is going to help you play winning basketball, Keegan Murray defends. He plays hard on that end. He's switchable defensively. He's very strong. He can deal with fours. He has good feet to be able to slide on the perimeter with guards. I think he is an impressive like 3-and-D plus-ish kind of guy that might be more of a, like, this is a starting caliber, high level, like winning role player. But I just wonder if we haven't gotten a chance to see what the upside is with him either.
I mean, I think fans know, listeners of this podcast know where I land on Keegan Murray, where, you kind of said it. Like, I just don't like the situation the Kings have put him in. And I think sometimes Kings fans think this is me taking a shot at Keegan Murray and his defense somehow. Like, I just don't think he's your primary best defender against all matchups. And so
Yeah.
I think what Keegan is like, I think he'd be a good team defender. I think taking some of the best wing forward matchups he can absolutely do. But in general, I think him taking the second best matchup is what's best for him defensively, which is really important to an all-around good defensive scheme, but also opens up more for him on the offensive end and allows him to be a little bit of more of a scorer and a threat that I think he can be. And so I'm with you. Like, I think he is absolutely a starting caliber wing forward, whatever you want to call him, in this league. And so my thing is, when we start to look at a number, like, is Jabari Smith Jr. not the starting point? Like, if you're Keegan Murray, don't you say Jabari Smith Jr. has played 212 games, started 194? I've started 231 and played 233. I've been more efficient from the field, from the three-point line. I've rebounded not quite as good, but I'm not a bad rebounder. And I might be a better defender. Like, why, if you're Keegan Murray, would you not say, I at least want the same AAV as what Jabari Smith Jr. got?
I think I would want more, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I think I would want a bigger number than what Jabari got. I I think the Trey Murphy deal is the reality. Like I think 112 is probably the number that I'd be like really targeting here. And the reason for that is you look at Keegan Murray against Trey Murphy's, second and third seasons, right? So Trey Murphy in his 2 seasons combined from 2023 to 2024, 136 games, averaged 14.6 points, 4 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 46.6% from the field, 39% from three, 86% from the line. Keegan Murray, 13.8 points, 45, 35, 83, 6 rebounds, so a better rebounder and a much better defender, I think, than what Trey Murphy is at this point. I think Trey Murphy's a little bit better player than Keegan Murray, personally, but that is what I would want. I would pretty clearly be looking at like, hey, I want like 27-ish, 28-ish a year. And here's the other piece of it too. If I'm Keegan Murray and I'm looking at it this way, I want to know what the direction is in Sacramento, and I want to know, like, am I going to get a chance to ever play on the ball? Right? Because that's where I'm thinking here. Like, am I going to get a chance to play on the ball, or is it going to continue to be, we have Zach LaVine, we have DeMar DeRozan, we're going to move DeRozan and bring in another on-ball player. You guys just signed Dennis Schroeder. So, like, you're even adding another on-ball player to the mix here than what it was previously, even though you removed De'Aaron Fox. You essentially replaced De'Aaron Fox with Zach LaVine, and then you added another on-ball player into the mix there. I just want to know what's going on. Like, DeMar DeRozan's deal can be up after this year. Are you going to let DeMar go? Or are you going to try to move him? Are you going to try and build a team that makes like a little bit more sense for me? Right? I kind of want to know what the plan is there.
Yeah, I don't want to be too rough towards the Kings here. So, like, I just want him to be in a good situation. So the Trey Murphy one is interesting because, like, I would just take Trey Murphy over Keegan Murray right now. Depending, like, I just think Trey Murphy, I'm super high on him right now.
Here's what I would say though. I think I would have answered Trey a year ago, right? Like, at this time last year, I think I would have said I would rather have Trey Murphy than Keegan Murray. But how much of what we're talking about with Trey Murphy is clouded by Trey took a massive leap after he signed the extension.
Sure. No,
right.
And this is to your point, what you said at the top is there's so much projection in this, because my thing is so I'll just be completely transparent. Like, I look at the Trey Murphy contract, right, Sam? And I say, man, if that's my number 2 scorer on that contract, I feel really good about how I can build out the rest of the roster, right? If I have Keegan Murray and what I've seen so far, no projection, if I have Keegan Murray on that contract as my 4th offensive option, even though he is a better defender, I'm a little more uneasy because I know I got to go get out and get a number 2, a number 3 option and pay those guys. So that's where if I'm going to give him the Trey Murphy contract, and we're going to have this conversation with so many guys as we go throughout this, like the next 3 guys are all going to be the same conversation to some extent. I would want to feel good about Keegan being like at least my number 3 offensive option. I don't know that as much as I love Keegan, I see him as a really good NBA starter. I'm not sure I see Keegan as a number 2, number 3 scoring offensive option. But if you're projecting that, then of course you're asking for Trey Murphy money.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know that. So Trey Murphy's going to make 15% of the cap.
Yep.
Right. That's like number 3, number 4 money. That's not top 3 money. You know what I mean?
That's maybe where I'm a little bit skewed here is like I would rather have Trey Murphy than Keegan Murray, but I also am like, if Trey Murphy's the number 2, number 3 option, he's underpaid, right? Like, to your point here. And so that's where maybe my values are skewed a little bit because Trey's on such a good contract for the role that I'm projecting him. So it's a little bit unfair. I will admit that it could be a little bit skewed whenever we're talking specifically Trey Murphy.
Yeah. So I think where I'm at with Keegan is I think you're I think the comp is somewhere between Jabari and Trey Murphy. Like, I think that it's somewhere between 24 and 27, 28 a year. If he did like 400, if he did 125, something like that, it would make sense to me. If he decided to hold out for restricted free agency and said, hey, you know what? Like, I'm not one of these small guards that like doesn't really get paid right now. I'm actually like a bigger wing that teams are constantly on the lookout for. I think I will have a better market than someone like Jonathan Kuminga. I think I'll have a better market than somebody like Cam Thomas or somebody like that. I would get that. I would understand that on his part too. But so the agency here is priority. By and large, they have a tendency to get good deals for their players first and foremost. Like I would say that they have done about as good of a job as anybody in the league agency wise of getting deals for their players. But B, like they tend to get their guys paid before restricted free agency. So I would think that this probably gets done. And I would guess that it's going to get done in the ballpark of, I don't know. Let's call it 4,105.
Cool. The number in my head was 4,102. Like it's just like, we're the same range. I think, we talked about this a little bit with Giddey, obviously a different situation, but I also agree with you that I think he could have a really good market because he's such a plug and play dude. Like this is not, hey, we need to have a conversation how he fits on a roster. Like Keegan Murray fits on essentially every roster across the NBA because of the defense. I believe he's a real floor spacer and shot maker from the 3-point line. And so I do think if I'm Sacramento, I would be worried about the market he would have next offseason. I realize restricted free agency is complicated even with a player like that, but I think it's a little tougher with him than how some of these teams have played it with a Kuminga, a Cam Thomas. So if I'm Sacramento, I'm trying to get it done. I think if I'm Keegan Murray, I want real money. Like I've played 3 seasons and I've played a lot of minutes for this organization, Sam. And I've taken on a lot of tough defensive matchups.
And been totally healthy. Like he is, well, not like 100% healthy, but like he has played all but I think it's like 10 games or
2,
something.
7, like 13 or like very, very right around 10. Just available, right? He has been absolutely available and he seems like just a steadying presence. If you have one concern, I guess it's the jumper, right? That has gone down.
I would say it's the handle. Like he doesn't have a lot of like natural shiftiness, right? Like he's a guy that's going to like drive in a straight line and he can get to like a crossover to get to a step back, but like he's not getting like paint pressure off of his handle, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I've never been as high on Keegan's ceiling as most. We talked a lot about Keegan coming into that draft because of where Detroit was drafting and all of that. And I had a lot of debates about like ceiling and different stuff and all of that. So I've always been a little bit lower on the ceiling for Keegan. To me, it's like I need him to be an elite 3-point shot maker, like an elite knockdown shooter from out there. So those numbers trending down is a little bit concerning, but I believe in the jumper enough that I think I'm okay with it.
Yep. Okay. Next up, we'll knock out both Detroit guys.
Okay.
Here in one. So we've done this previously on the show.
Yeah.
I don't know that like we're going to spend quite as much time as what we did previously, but Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren.
Yep.
Coming off of seasons where I would say Jaden Ivey was like really starting to turn the corner right around the time that the Pistons were starting to turn the corner, and then he gets injured.
Yep.
And now we're looking at a situation where I think it's like a little bit complicated in terms of will he sign an extension or not. Last year, averaged 17.6 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 46, 41, 73. Over his 3 years in the NBA, Bryce, it's like 37, 38% off the catch from 3, right? So he's actually like fairly reliable now off the catch. And plus, that's really what matters now. Him being the second option to be able to like play off of Cade Cunningham, who you know is an all NBA guy, catch, get downhill, catch and shoot three, and being able to knock down those catch and shoot threes is really important because it opens up the downhill ability for him. It opens up how athletic he is and how capable he is of getting paint touches and getting into that middle of the court area, and then being able to break down the defense as a passer or being able to finish and get to the rim. I think he's like the guy I'm like most disappointed got hurt last year.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, because he was really, really coming on right in that window where the Pistons had started to figure some things out. You look at his last 5 games, 19.2 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 60, 61, 75. He had been on one, it had felt like to me, and was really starting to cook. And then he ends up getting hurt. So people can point to the fact that, oh my God, they're a better team without him. Look at the on-off numbers, all this stuff. The reality is that like Asar Thompson was just getting back right around the time that he got hurt, to his full strength. That completely changed the team. This team really started to figure out what JB was doing. Yeah. I mean, look, this is your team. I'm just going to let you. I shouldn't be talking this.
No,
much.
You should. The reality is, it was a dumpster fire the year before. Like, obviously, it was going to take a little while for them to figure it out, right? Like that's. I mean, here's my thing. If you don't believe in Jaden Ivey on the Pistons, that's fine. I don't think what the Pistons were the first 30 games of last season and what they were the last 50 games without him is overwhelming evidence. I will listen to other evidence, right? Like, I will listen to the non-Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham backcourt fans and all of that. I will listen to you, but I will not subscribe to the 30-game sample, 50-game sample. They were better they were going to be better, right? They had been awful for 4 years. That was the third coach in 3 years. They were coming off a historically bad season. Asar wasn't playing yet. Like, it was going to take a little bit for that team to like figure out and hit a real stride. I also, though, while this is the team I cover consistently, I've stolen your phrase with Jaden Ivey. Sam, I'm becoming less and less, what's the word? I think it's less and less likely, or I feel less and less likely that he signs an extension because I think the delta is too wide. I am more and more convinced, completely as an outsider, I have no sources within the organization, that Jalen Duren gets his extension. I'll know we'll talk about him in a second. And Jaden Ivey doesn't, because the range of outcomes for who Jaden Ivey as a player on this team and the role he fills is pretty vast. And the number that matches that, it is obviously vast as well.
So the other thing I want to bring up here is players like Jaden Ivey in the market have struggled recently.
Yep. Exactly.
Scoring guards. They have really, really struggled to get a significant amount of money. Cam Thomas is a prime example of this. Cam Thomas and Jaden Ivey are very different players, but an example nonetheless of what this is. You can kind of look through the last 2 years realistically, and you can see that it's been a bit of a struggle. The big key for me with Jaden Ivey is Jaden Ivey proving that he can defend. Yes. Where are you on Jaden Ivey's defense? Because I think that's the biggest question here.
No, that to me, that's the under talked about part of Jaden Ivey fitting with Cade Cunningham. I have no concerns in terms of like him being able to play off the ball and all of the things you outlined, being able to knock down, catch and shoot. Like, I don't think Jaden Ivey is a primary on-ball guy, maybe in second units and all of that. But really it comes down to the defensive end. Because if you ask me, what is the ideal backcourt mate with Cade Cunningham? It's somebody that's a better defender than what Jaden Ivey has been so far in his career. And the worrisome thing, if I want to play the negative side, is Jaden Ivey has always had the athletic tools to be a good defender going back to his time at Purdue, and has kind of struggled with all of the same things going back to his time at Purdue. And so I am fascinated to see if in year 2 of JB Bickerstaff, year 4 for Jaden Ivey, if we see the necessary growth on the defensive end. He will never be the best defensive player on this team. He won't be the second best defensive player on this team. He may not even be the third if Ron Holland comes around, but he can't be a negative. And I think he probably needs to be a little bit better than neutral, along with continuing the strides we've seen offensively in terms of the catch and shoot and those type of things.
Yep. I think that's right. Okay. You think no extension?
I don't think he gets an extension. That's where I've kind of resigned myself to.
If you had to number it, what would your number be?
I think if he gets one, it's a low number that Detroit offers him that's under $100 million, or some sort of shorter term deal in the ilk of what Jalen Green got.
Mine was either 496.
Okay.
Or 370-ish.
Sure. Yeah.
Like something like that.
Yep.
Do you do player option? Do you do like team option on some of these? Like this is where like that negotiation gets so complicated, because again, he just missed time in what was the most critical stretch of really his career at this like of the Pistons during his career at this point. Missing that time really matters.
Yes.
And I'm not totally sure what to do with it yet.
Yep.
I think there's a chance that I'm going to say, like, I think that they would probably, I think everybody here would probably like to do one. But again, like, there's a chance that this deal looks like a total steal if it's like 495 or something. There's a chance that it looks like, you know, what are you doing paying 496 for a sixth man?
Yep.
You know, that'd be like for equivalency for people, right? That would be like the equivalent to the Malik Monk deal, basically.
Yep.
Malik Monk is at like 18 million a year right now. Given the way that the salary cap is going to rise over the next few years, Jaden Ivey at that number, you know, let's call it like, I think it's like 15% of the cap or something, would be like pretty equivalent to what Malik Monk makes now.
And that's why I've changed my opinion on this, Sam, is because my impression this offseason is that Malik Monk is not viewed in a, I mean, I think he's viewed as a positive player, but including his contract is not viewed as positively of what I would have guessed for a 6th man of the year type player. And so even if Jaden Ivey is a 6th man of the year type player, even if that's the floor, he's like, even the number you brought up is not going to be used in a positive, viewed as a positive fashion. So I just don't think, he gets the number that makes it worth it. I think the only way this gets done is if he takes a number that's like essentially looks like 6-man money and he just takes it.
Yeah. I mean, Bryce, the thing is on this stuff, man, it's hard. Like if he got like a 495 offer, like if they were like, all right, we're comfortable with this number because we think there's still upside in this thing. Man, 95 million is just so much money to turn down.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like, especially for somebody who like is just coming off injury and like, you don't know what it's going to be. Like, it's just, maybe it's like 490, like even at 90, that's the thing. Like,
so that's my, like, if you start to get like less than 90, where you're getting into like $22 million a year, I mean, like I'm all about that. If I'm the Pistons, I just wonder. Like I don't know what JI wants, but it like you said, it is a lot of money. I think this one is a little complex.
Yeah, still just 23 years old. Worth bringing up as well. Jalen Duren is the other one. Jalen Duren just kind of is what he is to me.
Yes, exactly.
But in some respects, he isn't either, because last year, I have hammered Jalen Duren for his defense for a while. It has driven me crazy. I know that you've hammered him for his defense for a while.
Yep.
He's just not active enough. He's sometimes not engaged enough around the rim. He's definitely never been engaged enough at ball screen level and everything. But the last 3 months of the year, do you want to call it?
Sure.
Something like that, Bryce? Like 3 to
think,
4?
I think when I say it, I say the last third of the season plus the playoffs.
Yeah. We really started to see growth defensively from Duren. in a way that like completely changes the value equation from I would not want to pay Jalen Duren. Like, going into February last year, I was like, I probably just wouldn't pay him. To, okay, like maybe you do pay him. He very clearly has really good chemistry with Cade Cunningham and ball screens rolling to the rim. I still just wouldn't want to go nuts on this deal though. And I wonder if, like, given his production level, he will want a big contract. This one's also quite complicated to me.
So my thing with this, I think this one is easier in the sense that we do know who Jalen Duren is. I don't think the delta on his outcomes is as wide. It's just like, how do you value that? And that's what's tough whenever we've talked about this. Again, this is going to carry over into guys like Mark Williams and Walker Kessler. Is like, where does he land? Because the center market is interesting. Like I looked at 27-28 cap hit. So a couple of years from now, Jarrett Allen's going to be at 30 million. Miles Turner's at 28. Zubac, though, is at 21. Naz Reid, who right now is penciled in as a backup, is at 25. Gafford is at 18. So like where does Duren fit on that list? And then how do you value that in terms of the contract you want to offer him?
Is Duren better than any of those players right now? Like literally right now as we talk, is he better than any of those players?
I mean, as a true center, I would take him over Naz Reid, just like as a true center. Like I have questions about like Naz Reid playing major minutes as your starting center.
For what it's worth, I would take Jalen Duren over Naz Reid right now as well.
Especially in that role. I think Daniel Gafford's pretty good, and like that's actually a really interesting one. I mean, the one I can't ever get over is like Zubac, right? Like
he broke the market in a big way, signing that lower deal, which the Clippers are in the middle of their own thing right now. We'll see where that goes.
You say.
So like, it's really hard, I guess, is where I'm at with Duren. I would not want to go to 25 million for Jalen Duren. But if I'm Jalen Duren, over the last 2 years, I've averaged 13 points, 11 rebounds, 2.5 assists, shooting 65% from the field. I'm probably thinking I am worth the Jarrett Allen deal. Like the Jarrett Allen, like 125 that he signed or whatever it was, coming off of his rookie deal. Right. And I probably want a bit of a bonus for a bit of a, number on top of that because of the cap rising. And I'm just not doing that. Like I would almost prefer to sign Jalen Duren to like a 3-year deal. I would be willing to give him like the money. It would just need to be on a 3-year deal then.
So give him like 3 for 75.
Yeah. Something like that.
4 for 100 with a team option.
Yeah, sure. If I'm getting the team option, but like, there's no way if I'm Jalen Duren, I'm giving it.
Yeah, Duren's not signing that. I've talked myself into that he's gonna get like essentially like I know they're like complete polar like, but he's gonna get 100 million or something.
Man, that's crazy.
I know, but I feel like the conversation around the chemistry with Cade and the defensive growth, I just wonder if and I will say this, they run more offense than probably what people realize through Jalen Duren.
Yeah.
In terms of like throwing him the ball at the top of the key, and then they're running actions both sides and DHOs and stuff like that. Yep. So it is. Yeah.
So like what another comp here is like Nick Claxton, but like Claxton signed his deal, his 400, 497, whatever it is, after his 4th season, not after like his 3rd season, right? Like he signed that after his 4th season when he was coming off of like defensive player of the year voting and averaged like 13 and 9 and shot 70% from the field. Like it was just like a different deal. You know what? It was a totally different deal for him. So like even then that's hard. Like I was trying to decide, like, is Jakob Pirtle like kind of a comp. Like, but Pirtle like didn't do anything his first 4 years. Like he was just like a good, solid rotation player those first 4 years in the NBA. Like it's hard. The problem for the Pistons here, I think, is that it's hard to find players that were as productive as Jalen Duren, as young as Jalen Duren was.
Yeah.
Like if I'm Jalen Duren, I might like be looking at Andre Drummond as a comp. And like Drummond made the All-Star game in his 4th year. Like you look at Drummond's first 2 years, or Drummond's second and third year, 13.7 points, 13 rebounds, shot 56% from the field, wasn't nearly as good of a passer. Like that might be who I'm looking at is a comp. And again, like I think that Andre Drummond would make drastically less in today's NBA than, what he did then. But that's what makes this so hard and makes this so challenging, I think, is that we're in the middle of like shifting paradigms in terms of what we care about for NBA big men, particularly. And we're starting to get better at evaluating defense. And, then there's the whole thing that you and I talk about all the time with Ausar Thompson, where Ausar and Jalen Duren really tend to like operate in the same areas. And even though I agree with you that Jalen Duren's gotten way better at playing out high and, catching the ball at the top of the key and then running DHOs and hitting back cutters and everything, he also tends to like operate in the dunker spot and like roll to the dunker spot. And then you have Ausar Thompson like cutting into that area and then, doesn't read it quite as quickly as Ausar does. And then you have like, them cutting to the same area. And then Duren goes, oh shit, I have to flash the like foul line. Right. And the timing looks all off and it looks clunky. And I think I agree with you. I think they're going to give him money. I just don't know. I don't know what the number is that I'd be comfortable with. I would guess that the number I'd be comfortable with is lower than what Jalen Duren wants.
I think that's right. I think it's probably lower than what the Pistons are going to offer him. And it's an important point. I brought it up all the way back, a couple months ago. The first time that it was ever brought up on this podcast or my Pistons podcast was you are going to invest in Ausar Thompson long-term based on,
yes.
What, right now. Do you believe those two guys, if you're investing in Jalen Duren this offseason, you're essentially locking in 4 or 5 years of two absolute non-floor spacers in your starting lineup. Not bad shooters, not poor shooters, absolute no gravity, non-floor spacers in your starting lineup. And I don't know, is that right? Is that wrong? Whatever. I just know that it has to be a factor. If you think it can work, great. My thing with it is, I think when those two are on the floor together, one has to be in the action. Whenever they were playing the Knicks and they were trying to always pull Jalen Brunson into the action with Tim Hardaway Jr., and Ausar and Duren were playing both off the ball. One of them wasn't in the ball screen, one of them wasn't operating the ball. They were always in the same area like you just talked about. So I do think it's an important factor for the organization to ask themselves of, do we think this can work together with those two long-term?
And just to be clear for people, so just what the Pistons salary cap situation is with this, right? These two guys have a combined cap hit of like 50 million with their cap holds, right?
Yeah.
So they can get some space, like they can get some cap space, like they could decline the Marcus Sasser 4th year option. They could, get rid of the Duncan Robinson deal, which I think is only a couple million guaranteed.
Yep.
And they can be at like 10 million of space, like something in that ballpark. It's not a crazy number, but if they could, in theory, get Jaden Ivey's number lower by signing him to an extension, like if he would be willing to take like 22, they actually could get to a like spot where they have like maybe 18 million or 17 or 16 million or something like that in cap space if they wanted to. So that's also like kind of a shifting paradigm, which makes me wonder if, again, like is Ivey maybe the guy that makes more sense to extend because you shift the cap hit lower and it gives you a little bit more flexibility next summer. I don't know. It's very dependent on what Jaden Ivey's willing to accept, I think.
Yeah.
But with Duren, the number for me would be like, I wouldn't want to go over like 20 to 22. And I think he's going to want more than that.
Yep. I
And
think I agree.
maybe in a 3-year deal, I would be willing to go like 25, but I'd want it to be 3. I wouldn't want to go 4.
I will just say this, and we can put a bow on the Pistons part of this. I'm terrified for Detroit to end up in the Orlando situation, but without like even something close to the number 2 option that is Franz Wagner. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they lock in Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson to all of this money, and then they don't even have a number 2 or true number 3 scoring option. And then you're
Right.
trying to get off money and swing a huge trade and all of that. Like that is my biggest worry. I'm not saying I'm not worried that Trajan Langdon will make the wrong decisions. Like that's my biggest worry for Trajan Langdon. I think that's the biggest piece of the puzzle he has to figure out.
Yeah. And look, they're not as good as Orlando, was, in my opinion, and is, right? They have Cade, and I think I would take Cade over anybody on those 2 teams. But at the same token, they don't really have the Franz yet.
Correct.
I don't really think they have the Bane yet, to be honest. So like, I don't really want to go full in yet and like be completely locked into my roster either.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've wondered is like with Jaden Ivey, do you just let it play out? And then if he's not going to be that guy, you trade him at the deadline, because I would be ready to make a big move at the deadline if I'm Detroit and I'm not seeing it from him. Or if he is that guy, then you just like walk into next offseason and just say, hey, we're going to pay you. Like you averaged 20 a game this year. You improved defensively. Here's number 2 option money. Like you hurt your chances of giving him on a team friendly deal, but I don't know. I've workshopped that as well.
So now we're into what I would say are, bar none, the 2 most complicated potential extension options. Ben Mathurin and Shaedon Sharpe. Let's start with Ben Mathurin. So Ben Mathurin last year on a title team, or a team that made the finals, averaged 16, 5, and 2, shooting 46, 34, 83. Tyrese Halliburton is going to miss, if not this entire season, 90% of this entire season. And Ben Mathurin is starting. He's getting the first crack at the starting job, according to Rick Carlisle, who talked to Caitlin Cooper about this. Ben Mathurin is going to score. Like he is going to put up buckets. He's going to get numbers. And yet, I wonder if like that kind of stops this from getting done.
Yeah.
But like there could be movement where if you're the Pacers and you're like, hey, I want to get something done early because we think this is where like your internal information is so critical on these things, where if you really believe in Mathurin, you do it now. Like you're like, okay, like we're signing this extension now, we're keeping him, we're doing it this way. If you have some questions on the way this is going to go, and you have to like look in the mirror and be completely honest with yourself, you have to just go, okay, maybe he's not the guy for our team. Maybe he's not the guy for Halliburton. Maybe he's not the guy that like really fits well for us, right? Because he's averaging 20 points a game this year. Like I will bet a good amount of money on that he's averaging 20 points a game this year. I know he played 30 minutes a game last year anyway, but he's going to get so many open shots, I think, this year. Playing as a starter, playing with Siakam, playing with Andrew Nembhard. Like, there's just a lot more to go around, in my opinion. And on top of it, there are shots that are going to open up because Miles Turner is no longer there.
Yeah.
This is where you just got to be really honest with yourself, I think, and decide, is he the guy or is he not the guy? And if not, what do we do? And what's the number that we're willing to pay?
Yeah, I mean, this is one where I feel like if it doesn't get done before the season, it's not going to get done because, like you said, he's going to put up huge numbers. I think this one is interesting. Like, I see Benedict Mathurin as like a really good player off the bench, and I've been a huge Benedict Mathurin fan. Like, I became like he became my guy in that draft class that year, just because I like the way he played at Arizona. But you look at the playoffs, and you look at the minutes per game in some of those series and stuff, and it's a little bit concerning, even though he did score the basketball, and we know he can do that. It's just, I mean, is he ever a starting player on a healthy Pacers team?
It's just so fun. Like, speaking to the point about the playoffs, right? In the Knicks series, 9 points, 0 points, 2 points. And in games 2 and game 3, he played 10 minutes and 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And then in game 4, he had 20 points in 12 minutes. In game 5, he had 23 points in 24 minutes. And then even after those 2 games, they still didn't really trust him in game 6. And he played 8 minutes and had 4 points, right? And then you go to the finals, right? 5 points, 14 points on 4 of 7. He was really good in game 2, I thought. Game 3, he was amazing. He had the 27 in that win. And then the next 3 games, 8 points on 1 for 2 from the field, 7 points on 2 for 11 from the field, and then 2 points on 1 for 6 from the field, games 4 through 6. And then in game 7, he really steps up and has the 24 and 13 with Halliburton out. And it's just like, what the fuck is this? Like, what do we do? I don't know, honestly. This feels like the kind of player where if I was Indiana, I would want to take this to restricted free agency, given how these players have struggled to get paid. I think he is different from Kuminga insofar as, like, he does get guarded shooting threes. He can slash, he can attack the basket. I think it's a little bit easier to make it work spacing wise with Mathurin on the court than it is with Kuminga. I think they're just like different roles in a lot of ways. He's more of a 2-3. Kuminga's more of a 3-4. But it's hard.
Would you take, if Indiana offered him like real 6-man type money, would you take that if Mathurin, or are you betting on yourself more?
So what is that? Like, you're saying like 18 to 20 or so?
Yeah. Like if they offered you 4 for 80.
I mean, I would take that if I was him, but I don't know. Like, if I'm his representation and I'm starting this year.
Yeah.
And there's no Halliburton shots to be had. There are no Miles Turner shots to be had. Like, that's a lot of offense that is open in Indiana. Like, you look at just losing those 2 guys. I mean, that's like 25 shots a game that are up in the air right now.
So I guess my point is, I don't think Indiana will or should offer him the contract that he probably would accept. And I don't think Benedict Mathurin, with the opportunity that's going to be presented to him, is going to take what Indiana will offer. I think this one is definitely destined for restricted free agency next offseason.
But okay, let's say he averages 25 a game this year or something crazy, right? Like, let's just like go nuts and say it. I mean, what do you do then?
I have no idea. I have no idea what's going to, I've only got to that point, Sam. I have no idea how it plays out after. Because,
well, the other piece of it that's really important is like Indiana's cap situation, right? Like, they already have Siakam at 49, Halliburton at 49, Nembhard at 19, Toppin at 15, Aaron Nesmith is at 11 and is extension eligible right now, or maybe not right now, maybe later in the year. So you're probably going to want to extend Nesmith, because I think Nesmith is probably more important to them than what Mathurin is. So then you have the TJ McConnell deal at 11 million as well. And you gave Isaiah Jackson 7 million, and you have Jarris Walker and Ben Shepherd on like 13 combined that you're going to keep.
And you have to go find a starting center whenever you actually want to compete for an NBA championship again.
Correct. Like, you already have 185 million against the cap next year without Mathurin's money included, when the cap is going to be 165 and you don't have a starting center yet. So I think that with all due respect to Jay Huff, you probably want to play this out, I think, if you're them.
Yeah. This one is, it's because I don't. So I don't think he's a starter in Indiana. Like you just talked about all these guys you should have locked up long term or will. And it's like, which one of the four of Halliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, and Siakam is he taking out of the starting lineup? Like I just don't see it, Sam. So to me, in Indiana, best case scenario is he is the sixth man. But if you're Benedict Mathurin, are you going to go feel like you're going to average 20 plus points a game this season and be locked into a 6-man type contract? I find it hard to believe that he would sign up for that with, again, what I would assume he envisions an opportunity to show NBA teams around the league that he's a starting caliber off-ball guard / wing. And so why lock that in whenever you think you're about to get that opportunity to show that to the rest of the league?
Yeah. If I'm the Pacers, I'm probably willing to do like 480, but I don't think I'm willing to do that if I'm Mathurin.
Yeah.
Honestly. So I would understand him kind of deciding to play this out.
And if you're Indiana, would you even have reservations at that? Like we just went through the playoff thing where there were times where do you want to pay $20 million a year to a guy that Carlisle showed at different times he didn't trust in your playoff run? Like, that's a little scary.
Well, here's the other option there though, too. Yeah, yes, you're 100% right about that. And this never really happened with Jalen Green, right? But you could look at it if you're the Pacers, it's like, yeah, sure, we'll give Mathurin 24 a year or whatever, or 96 or something like that. And we'll just look at it as we can get it for trade matching for our center moving forward.
Yeah. It just can't be so much that it's a negative, right? Like you can't go crazy. You can't go too crazy with the number.
And if you do that, it probably needs to be 3 years, not 4.
Correct. Yep.
So it'd have to be like 3 for 75, and he has to be willing to take that.
Yep.
Which I don't know if I would if I'm him. So that's what makes this very challenging, I think. Like there are strategic levers that they could pull here. It's just difficult, I think, to go for it.
Yep.
Okay. Shaedon Sharpe next.
I don't know.
I have no idea on Shaedon Sharpe, but if I was Shaedon Sharpe, I think I want money.
God, he averaged 19 a game last year.
He averaged like 19 a game last year. He averaged 16 a game the year before. And like, if you look at the final numbers last year, it was a little bit messy and rocky for a while there, but like 18.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 45, 31, 79. I mean, if you're the Blazers, like if he ever shoots it, he is a monster. Like he really might be like an awesome, ridiculous offensive player if he ever shoots it. He is still just 22 years old, and the athleticism, the length, the body control, all of it is pretty sick, but he doesn't defend. Like he is really, really rough on that end. And then on the offensive end, like the passing isn't really there. I don't think he sees the court super well. And the shooting has just been up and down, like throughout. So like, is this a player that's going to keep growing kind of like Zach LaVine did as he continues to get reps and just like the athleticism continues to explode? Zach LaVine's third year in the league, by the way. We just kind of read off Shaedon Sharpe's numbers. Zach LaVine's third year, 18.9 points, 3.4 rebounds, 3 assists, 45, 39, 84. So LaVine was a much more reliable, consistent shooter, and that's maintained itself throughout the course of his career. But man, he might be like a 6th or 7th man. And we talk about this paradigm with shooters and scoring guards that don't really do a whole lot else right now. And those guys are not getting a ton of money on the marketplace right now. I truly have no idea. Like, this is one where I genuinely don't know. You could tell me they pay him like 400. You could tell me that he gets like 476. You could tell me that he gets like 130. Like, I genuinely don't know what the number is with him.
Yeah, it's
I know what I would pay, but I don't know what they're thinking.
yeah, because I think I know he's one where I feel like I know based on everything I agree with everything you said as a player. The other thing I often find myself thinking as I watch Shaedon Sharpe play is like, man, he does a lot of this with the ball in his hands as well. Like he seems like
Yeah.
one of those scorers who wants to do it with the ball in his hands. And people like, why does that matter? Well, it's one thing for him to be a volume scorer that doesn't defend. It's another thing if he can do it at least as an off the ball player where Scoot's playing with the ball in his hands or Denny's playing with the ball in his hands or the guy you just shocked the world and drafted in the first round is operating with the ball in his hands at the top of the key. And so for me, it's like, what is the fit with all of these guys? Again, like going back to the Detroit thing, you know, like right now, Denny's on a stupid contract, but eventually you're going to have to pay him some more money. And, you know, we'll see what Scoot ends up being. But I think a important part of all of this is how do all of these guys fit together? Does Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, Deni Avdija, Toumani Camara, do those guys work together in a starting lineup playing a ton of minutes? Right? Or is it going to be like, well, Shaedon wants the ball in his hand, so now Denny and Scoot are playing in the corners. Is like, is that really where you want those two guys to be? Or is Shaedon better off being, like you said, the first guy off the bench that's just a nuclear scorer because the defense, you know, they can probably hide him defensively with Klingon, Toumani, and then depending on where Denny and Scoot get to defensively, Scoot
in Holiday
and Drew Holiday as well. Here's the other aspect of it. Like, where does he even fit in the pecking order in 26, 27 when Damian Lillard is also on this team? So, like, well, we've given this organization a lot of love, and it's a very fascinating organization for us, especially the players on it. You're going to pay him $25 a year, and then he's going to come off the bench behind these guys? Or, like, what's going to happen? So, this is the most, like, hell if I know.
Just like, yeah, not sure. Could be anything. I think that everything that we're saying here, Bryce, at the end of the day, right? Like, I think that everything that we're kind of lining up here says to me at least that we should hit restricted free agency here and give him one more year and see what this looks like.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they have so many options now on the ball with Denny, with Scoot, with him as well, with Drew Holiday, who will play a little bit, at least like with the ball in his hands occasionally. Then you also, I mean, whatever Yang is going to be, like, I have no idea if they're even going to use him this year, if he'll be in the G League. There are a number of guys, I think, where it could like artificially deflate his numbers to where he's probably not going to average like 25. But, you know, if he averages like 22 and proves it, I think I'm good paying him at that point. But I would want to see one more year. I think it's Shaedon Sharpe is where I'm at.
Sure.
Okay. Next is Dyson Daniels. This is just like an easy comp for me. Like there's such a simple number here. I don't know if they'll do it, but like if I'm his representation, I'm just saying I want the Jalen Suggs deal.
Jalen Suggs, yeah.
I want 5 years, 150.5. And whether or not they'll do that, who knows? But they just gave Jalen Suggs 30 a year or so on a descending deal. That's the number I want. Give me that number because we have a very similar amount that we have proven so far. Jalen Suggs was second team all defense, 12.6 points, 3.1 rebounds, 2.7 assists, shot 47, 39, 76. Dyson Daniels in his third year, 14.1 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, first team all defense, 49, 34, and then 59 from the line. So worst shooter. I would say, I don't know if he's better defensively. I would say he is better defensively, but like not so far better that it's, you know, a massive, massive deal. I'm just saying, like, that's the deal I'm asking for if I'm the representation, and it's just what the settle number is at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we had Dyson. 10 spots. We had Dyson ahead of Jalen Suggs in our top 25 defenders list. I think.
We had him like 8 or 9 spots ahead.
Yeah. Suggs was in episode 1. Dyson was in episode 2. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you here in terms of this is what I'd go in asking for. And I'm fascinated to see the pushback on this because I feel like people always scream about, hey, value defense. Why don't people value defense? Why don't teams value defense? Well, if Dyson Daniels is this level of defender, this is the type of money that, he can command. And I said it all year long. I'm actually maybe a touch lower on, I thought the DPOY conversation was crazy for Dyson Daniels. I don't watch Dyson Daniels
did too.
And think DPOY. I thought all defense, absolutely. Obviously, I think he's a top 10, 15 defender in the league. But with that said, one thing I always like to talk about was the growth offensively. And I do like what he brings on that end of the floor as well. I think at times it's underrated in terms of his cutting. He can handle the ball a little bit. He can pass. The shooting obviously has to continue to grow and improve and at least be able to knock down, catch, and shoot. But I think he's shown enough offensively with, I think, top 10, top 15 defender, fair enough to say elite, with the elite defense. And what his defensive impact and the way he does it contributes to an offense in terms of driving transition and pace of play.
Yeah, no, I think that's all correct. I feel the exact same way about Dyson. I think he's like a top 15 defender in the league, maybe like a top 10 defender in the league, not a guy that finished second in defensive player of the year. Obviously a massive transition player on offense because of the ability to create steals, and he gets you extra possessions by diving on the ground and by just frankly turning the ball over in the way that he does. Yeah, I mean, Dyson Daniels is an awesome player. Yeah. And again, the comp here is the comp to me. This is precedent that has been established. If I'm Dyson Daniels' representation, the question is just, okay, let's say Atlanta is not willing to do that. Atlanta looks at it and they're like, okay, so, sorry, we think Jalen Johnson is our number 2 guy. And we just gave Jalen Johnson, 5 years, 150. It's got to be a little bit less than that. So is it 28 million a year? Like, is it something like that? Is it 5? I don't know, 120, or 140, 135,
sure,
something like that. Or is it 4 years and it's 114, something like that? To me, like, this is actually an easier contract than what people think.
Yeah,
it's just like we kind of know what these guys get. He's established himself as an NBA starter. He literally just finished second in defensive player of the year last year. As much as you and I disagree with that, other people don't. Like, he's getting a massive amount of money.
Yeah. Yep.
And Atlanta, like, I think has to pay it, because if you're going to continue to build around Trae Young, you need this guy. And like, there's a question as to whether or not they're going to continue to build around Trae Young, I guess, given that they have not extended him yet. But I don't know, like, you just built this awesome team that you and I are really excited about and think could be a top 4 team in the East this year. Going into the year, I want everybody happy. I want everybody like rowing in the same direction. I don't want Dyson Daniels pissed off because he finished second in defensive player of the year last year and averaged like 14, 6, and 4 and somehow didn't get an extension.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you.
So yeah, I think this gets done, and I think it's like either 4, 115 or it's like 5, 140-ish, 145-ish or something.
Sure.
So yeah, I actually think that's like weirdly an easy contract. Okay. Jeremy Sochan is next on the board. We talked about this a little bit when we did like our underrated trade,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Names.
Targets potentially. They're in a weird spot where like they do have like they have very strong open books here moving forward. Like they have De'Aaron Fox and Devin Vassell under contract for like 75 million or whatever it is, 75 to 80 million over the next couple of years. But after that, it's pretty open. Like they do still have Wemby for 16 million next season, 2026-27. Then he'll obviously get supermaxed. Then they have Dylan Harper and Steph Castle for 2 more years on like really cheap deals. They have Carter Bryant long term, obviously. I don't know what to do with Sochan because I don't know how valuable they will see him now that they have Carter Bryant. I think he probably comes off the bench this year, was our read. Like when we did the Castle injury thing last week, we kind of assumed it would be De'Aaron Fox,
The
Devin
Harper
Vassell,
injury thing.
Dylan Harper. I'm sorry, not Castle. We assumed it would be De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell, Steph Castle, Victor Wembanyama, and Harrison Barnes starting because Harrison Barnes started every single game last year. I mean, if Sochan's coming off the bench for you, you probably want to keep the number at a relative minimum, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where I landed on this one was like, this is another, like, how do we see all of these pieces fitting together in terms of Sochan, non-shooter, Castle, non-struggling shooter right now. Is Carter Bryant going to knock down shots? And I know, like, people will say, well, Wemby spaces the floor as a big, but when you put that many non-floor spacers around him, you kind of mitigate what the power of a stretch five can do for you. And so while Sochan is a really good defender and I like the energy he brings and all of that, it's just like, I wouldn't put him like to a big number. And so I just like wonder, like, can this end up being, so I thought like what, not the same type of players, but like what Isaiah Stewart got with Detroit or what Obi Toppin is on with the Pacers, which those guys are like right around 15 a year. I know Stewart's is flat. I don't know if Obi Toppin's is flat, but I kind of wondered if maybe that's the realm of what we would be looking at.
It's just funny because you look at the production, right? And Sochan has actually been like fairly productive. Like he's averaged 11 points every season throughout the course of his career. He is 11.4 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 47% from the field over the course of his like 3 seasons in total. And we know he's a really good defender too. I think that the numbers, like if you're going to do it, it's like between 465 and 470. Probably. It's like right in the ballpark that you said, just like with a slight
jump
bump for
inflammation. No, not inflammation.
Inflation.
Inflammation bad. Inflation also can be bad, but in this case, good for Jeremy Sochan.
So here's the other thing here is if you do decide this to give him an extension, he's not tradable this year, basically.
Yeah.
Right. It's not as bad as what people think because really it's just that he's poison pilled, right? And he'd be like, it's 7 million going out he'd be 16 going out and then 7 million like coming in, if memory serves. But if it is only like a $65 million deal, the poison pill isn't quite as disastrous as what it normally is. So like you might be able to include him in a deal depending on what the number is. So I think that where I'm at on this is that I would just rather play it out and see what it looks like with him this year and what it looks like with De'Aaron Fox and just kind of the new team that I have, because we got lucky and we got Dylan Harper, right? Like that completely changes the equation for us in a lot of ways. But if I'm going to do a deal, I want it to be like I want it to be below 70. I know that. And I would be interested to know if he would take that. I don't know if he would.
Yeah, that's what would be interesting too. Is like, was he willing to take that, or would he rather bet on himself a little bit? Maybe get to a new situation. Maybe he would prefer that, where he sees some of the logjam, the Carter Bryant edition. But if I'm San Antonio, I think I'd feel good about that in terms of this like versatile defender that I think can at least provide value in an 82 game setting. I think I'm intrigued by that number. So,
okay, we're going down the board now. Johnny Davis has been cut already. Ousmane Dieng, I don't think is getting an extension. We're going down to, and we've already talked about J-Dub, who is signed, and Jalen Duren earlier. We're going down to number 14 with Ochai Agbaji. This is kind of a fun one that I kind of wonder if it does get done, because he was 10 points, 4 rebounds, shooting 50-49 or 50-40-70 last year, and plays athletically and is like somewhat valuable on defense. I wouldn't say he's like crazy valuable on defense, but somewhat valuable. Certainly an athlete. I think he like kind of settled into a role last year in Toronto, which was really nice. If he's willing to do like the Moses Moody deal at like 337, I think I would probably do that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, which sounds like for a guy. Well, I mean, what did he play? He played 27 minutes a game last year. I think my thing with Ochai is like we always go through like this roster, and I'm just like, well, how many minutes can he play whenever we've outlined the starting lineup, and then you still have Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Jamal Shed, Jamison Battle, Colin Murray. I know all those guys don't play the same position, but it's like, how many minutes? I think what to me is like, is he a guy that you want to keep around after the consolidation trade? Like when you consolidate these 12, 13 guys into 9 or 10 and go get your number one option or whatever it is he a guy you still want to have around? And I think if he is, then he makes sense on that deal, right? Like below the non-tax MLE, you mentioned Moses Moody. That's in line with what like Isaiah Joe. That's a little more than what Joe and no, that's right around what Joe and
right around the number,
Aaron Wiggins got, is it not? Isn't that about right?
Yeah.
It's right around Joe, a little more than Aaron Wiggins. God, Aaron Wiggins deal is stupid. So yeah, I think sure that's fine with me.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, they have Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, obviously. Then they are going to play Jamal Shed, obviously. Just drafted Elijah Martin as like another defensive kind of guy who could be like a 3-and-D athlete kind of player in the way that Ochai plays. Maybe you just don't do this if you're them, because you just don't really know what your team is yet.
That would
and
be
you don't
my
want to lock
worry.
in more money.
Yeah, that would be my worry.
And like Ochai like isn't going to explode.
Yeah.
Right. He's not going to become like a 20 point per game scorer. So you might just be happy with the restricted free agency rights at the end of the day. But if he was willing to do like 335, something like that, I might do it because I think it's like the right number. Yeah.
And here's the other thing that we talk about this all the time. That's not bad salary to eventually put in a trade, right? Like at some point in that contract, having that that extra $10 to $12 million isn't bad money to go ahead and get you to a certain number if you need it.
Right. And the thing that is worth noting, at least, is that assuming that they are not, even if they aren't able to do a consolidation deal, right? They're still like 10 million away from the tax next year. So I think you could do like a reasonable Ochai deal and still avoid the tax next year, even if you keep like the same roster. Let's say this roster is good. Like it turns out to be better than what we're expecting. Like they end up winning 48 games or something, right? And you just decide you want to keep them together. You have the wherewithal to be able to do that next year. It gets a little bit more complicated in 2027-28 because that's when the Pirtle jump comes financially. But RJ Barrett's deal expires at that point too. So, there are just ways to work around all of this. I think I would be willing to give Ochai money if I was them. I just wouldn't be willing to go over like 12 a year.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And I think if I'm Ochai, I probably do that for what it's worth.
Just lock in some money.
Right. Okay. Next up, Mark Williams. So this one's extremely complicated because Mark Williams is one of the most per game productive players in the class, just straight up, and averaged 15 points, 10 rebounds in 44 games last year, shot 60% from the field. It's not great it is great for him, but the defense is not great. He's actually been quite poor on that end at this point. I really have hated everything I've seen from him on that end. He's not as good as what the length would make you believe on defense. And his mobility has just been not strong enough in ball screens, and he just consistently gets beat. But he's massive. He's a great lob threat. I do wonder if this Phoenix team is like well equipped to take advantage of what makes him so special as a threat, right? But at the same token, he also has massive injury concerns, has real concerns, seemingly with the back. There's like a knee concern. Like that, I don't know what to expect here. Do you?
No. And again, that's where like the Jalen Duren, Mark Williams, Walker Kessler, like all of it gets a little bit. I mean, they are different players, but you kind of end up in the same realm. Like for Mark Williams, like you said, he's been productive, but the defense and the injuries, I think, are a bigger factor here, where I think like Jalen Duren has more of an argument for the numbers we tossed around earlier than what Mark Williams does, even though like when you just look at the box score numbers, people may say like Mark Williams numbers are just as good, and I guess you could argue potentially better. So, I mean, I think whatever we talked about with Duren earlier, I think applies here as well. Other than like with Phoenix, like you gave up capital to go get him, and like what are you? I guess they also gave up, they drafted a young center right behind that as well. So I'm not exactly sure what their long-term play is there, but like he's one where I'd be nervous to, maybe this is the shorter term one because of the injury concerns, right? Or you do get a team option because of that.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if they've backed themselves into having to pay him. I mean, if I'm him, I'm taking 20 a year. I think the biggest thing for them is like you do 20-ish a year or whatever, and you build in just all sorts of injury, insurance designations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if he misses X number of games, if he plays 50 games, the next year is guaranteed. If he plays 60 games, the third year is guaranteed. Like stuff like that. Like we see with other players in these circumstances. Like Zion Williamson's contract has some escalators and some guarantee escalators, right? Based on injuries. I would expect that that's what we see with Mark Williams. We're going to see, probably some sort of escalators where maybe it's like a 480 or something, and it's 20 million guaranteed, or maybe even 40 million guaranteed. And then the third year is he has to play, at least 55 games in year 2 in order for year 3 to be guaranteed.
Yeah.
Sure. That feels like the fairest structure to me.
Yes, I would agree with that. Like he's the player that we're going to talk about that I think that makes that kind of structure makes the most sense for.
Okay. The next one is Tari Eason. Tari Eason is, and really we have, I would say 3.5 more guys to go through. Tari Eason has been incredibly productive when he's been on the court. I love watching Tari Eason. I love his energy. I love his aggressiveness. I love how long and athletic he is. He is a bulldog out there. And like watching him with Amen Thompson is a blast. And I truly love watching him. I'm expecting Houston extends him because I think Houston loves him as much as I do.
Yeah. I would give him, you got to give him like what, you got to give him more than what we threw out for Sochan's number, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. 100%. My number for Tari was, like, here's the problem, Bryce. He's been better than Jabari to this point. But are you going to give him more than, can he actually get more than Jabari based on their salary structure?
I think you're getting real expensive all of a sudden with guys that aren't, like, that's why I say what I said. Like, maybe another team could give him, closer to that. But it's getting real dicey. I think if you're giving him something similar, and then you're eventually going to have to give him in the max, and whether it's KD or somebody else to be a number one, number two scoring option, I'd want to see how those numbers play out, I guess, and I would want to make sure I still have the flexibility to keep the roster the way I would want it.
12 points, 6 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1.7 steals, 0.9 blocks in 24 minutes a game. Just hilarious. 49, 34, 76. 2 points here that I think Houston are going to be able to play against him a little bit. He has not been like wildly healthy. Like he played 57 last year. He played 22 the year before. So the fact that he often, plays this rugged style that kind of results in injuries, I think that could allow them to keep this number just like a touch lower. Because if I'm Tari, I definitely want paid right now. Like I'm doing this if I'm him. Second piece of it, if you're Houston, I don't know if he's ever a starter. And honestly, I kind of love him coming off the bench. Yeah. I'm not saying like starter quality. I just mean like with the way that your team is structured, does he ever start? I don't know if he does. Yeah. And I kind of love the idea of this dude being just like this crazy energy guy off the bench who is so valuable and like might win 6th Man of the Year awards. But I love the idea of that with him.
Yep.
The number I had was like the PJ Washington deal, 490.
Okay.
Like 22-ish. It gets expensive, but like, I think that these guys are all good and like you can move guys that are good at basketball, I think is the reality.
Sure. Yeah. It's not a Tari thing. It's just like all of a sudden you're putting a lot of money into there's a potential neither of those guys start long-term. And that's just, that's a little scary. But to your point, if that's the way it plays out, you could probably convince a team to trade for Tari Eason or Jabari Smith Jr. because they would start for their team. So maybe it's not catastrophic to your flexibility.
And maybe you get a slight discount on the PJ Washington number because Tari has missed games, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you can do that. Like PJ played 65, 73, 73, and then was only at 57 last year. I did forget that he missed that little bit of time last year. But maybe you can convince him, like, first deal, take like a slight discount because you just need to lock money in because you've been injured a little bit here and there. Maybe it's, I think somewhere between 480 and 490 makes sense. And if I'm Houston, I'm just paying that. And he is somebody I'm very happy to have.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think that gets done for what it's worth.
Okay.
Another one that I think gets done. I think Christian Braun gets done.
Yeah.
Seems like Jokic absolutely loves him.
Yeah. Like first
and foremost, like that's the best.
That's important.
Feather in Christian Braun's cap. The guy loves him. The guy on your team absolutely adores you. This past year, Christian Braun, 15 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, shot 58, 40, 83. Just monstrous efficiency. He's perfect playing off of Jokic because he's such an active cutter and because he can knock down threes. That's the big step for him moving forward is, can he become like a consistent 5 3-point attempts per game, 38 to 40% 3-point shooter? If he does that, he's like an incredibly valuable player. Even still, he's really valuable because he defends his balls off. He fights and he scratches on that end. I think this is a big number, Bryce. I do.
So
I think this is a massive number.
More than 100? Like closer to 120?
I think this is more than 100.
Interesting. So, like, I guess my counter would be, and listen, I love Christian Braun. Like, and I think he's awesome for that team, but like, he's still the 5th option on that team, right? Like, he's the 5th player in that starting lineup. I wondered if they would try to keep it down because of that, and then how expensive they can be.
You can try to keep it down, but I mean, he's not getting less than 25 a year. There's no way. I don't think.
He had a huge
coming
year.
off the year that he just had 15, 5, and 3, shooting 58% from the field. And I get it that people are going to say like he's a Jokic merchant, like he is somebody that gets fed. Who the fuck cares if you're Denver? He's playing with Jokic.
Yeah.
Like you just need to keep him at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you were able to get off the Porter deal already. Yes, you still have the Cam Johnson money. That is true. But you only have it for next year when this deal would be in effect. Like you have the $23 million for Cam Johnson, and then that's kind of it moving forward. And you can figure out a way to finagle it. I'm signing him for 5 if I can, if I'm them.
Yeah.
And it's like 125 to 145. Like
So
it's a big window.
So I think if I'm Denver, I think I would try to do that as opposed to getting bigger than 25 a year. I think I would give him the 5th year and then try to lock him in at, roughly 25 a year.
Yeah.
As opposed to
if I'm
going
him,
like up to 30 or something.
If I'm him, I think I want even more than that.
Sure. I mean, it was a big year. It really was. And I'm a huge Christian Braun fan. My argument always here has been like just Denver's willingness to spend and sometimes be a little bit cheap. And either that means are they not going to get him locked in or are they going to be able to talk him into something a little lower?
Yeah. I mean, here's the problem. Jokic loves him.
Yeah.
And Jokic is not locked in past next year yet.
Yeah.
I think you have to pay him.
Yeah.
I think you have to pay him and make this dude happy.
Sure.
Like, I think it's a no-brainer. He fights his like absolute scraps and claws on defense. He's an athlete. He is strong. He's tough at the rim. Like, this is the exact player you win games with, I think.
Absolutely.
So to me, it's like 25 to 28 a year. And it's something like that.
Yep.
Okay. Other guys we've kind of skipped over recently. AJ Griffin is no longer in the league. Dalen Terry, I just don't think they're going to do anything there. He hasn't proven himself to be an NBA player yet. Jake LaRavia had his option declined. Malachi Branham, also, not option declined, but who knows? Like, I don't think Malachi Branham's getting an extension. Next up is Walker Kessler. This one is complicated because Utah has real incentive to play this into next season and to let him be a restricted free agent. Because if you look at what they can do cap-wise with him. So Kessler, next offseason, has a cap hold currently set for like $14 million a year. And they are definitely I think they're trying to be a cap space team, if you made me bet next year. So they can look at Lowry at 46. They have Walker at 14, and then Bailey at 9, and then like all these young guys. And they can really have a ton of space. They also have a lot to be able to get through. So I don't know. Where are you at with Kessler here?
Yeah, that's interesting. I do wonder if they just let it play out, like you said, because of the cap situation. I've mentioned his name a couple times, when we were talking Jalen Duren, when we were talking Mark Williams, he ended up, in, like the top 25 defensive players. So in that way, he, I think he has an argument to getting paid. And so I think he ends up in the same realm as those guys. But again, team specific situation in terms of maybe being able to hit restricted free agency because the team has the flexibility with the cap hold and all of that to do it and keep the cap space they need.
So next year they can be at like, just through Ace Bailey, 69 million, Taylor Hendricks, that'd be what, 77, 12 for Keontae George and Cody Williams. That's 89. Bryce Sensabaugh and Walter Clayton gets you to like 98 or so. There actually is like real value for them keeping that cap hold at 14 as opposed to 25, especially assuming that they have a high draft pick next year.
Yeah.
I wonder if they wait to do this.
Sure.
The number, I agree with you. The number is like 400.
Yeah.
I think he's better than both Duren and Mark Williams, frankly. I think he's a better defender. I think that they've had like nobody who can actually get him the ball as a roller, really. I think that he's just better than those guys. But I think if I'm him, I want like real money. And if I'm Utah, I'm like, hey, like we will pay you. Just give us some time here so we can maybe go out and get like another great player in free agency, Trae Young, Austin Reeves, whoever it is, and make it work that way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like that's the unique aspect of this one for the Jazz in terms of the cap space route that they can have.
I think I would rather have the cap space route if I was them and just pay Walker. And then the final guy here is Nikola Jovic. This is just simple. This is like Moses Moody-ish money to me. He hasn't quite proven enough yet to where I'm like locked and loaded. I think he's like definitely a dude, but I think he's pretty good. Like I think he's like a useful rotation player at the very least. I don't know if he's a starter. Like that's kind of my issue. I'm not 1,000% sure yet if he's a starter. Also, I'd like to see him play like 82 games in a year, frankly.
Yeah.
At some point. But 11 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, shot 46, 37, 83. I think he can shoot it. I think he can pass it. He's obviously very large. Like he is 6'10". I think he's going to continue to fill out and be stronger. I think he's a good player. Maybe it's a little bit more than the Moses Moody money. Maybe it's like 342, 345. I would be willing to sign him, though. I would be willing to extend him.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. We've seen him start some games and play well for this team. So I think getting him in at a number like that, where, I mean, it could go really well if he gets back to that and is able to play games. Or, you know, even if he ends up being like, I mean, like if he's your 8th man on the Miami Heat, like that's still a fine contract. And I think because he's only played a little over 100 games in his career, maybe he'd be willing to lock in, you know, some real money, you know, with a contract like that.
Yeah, I would definitely lock in if I was him and Miami was willing to pay. Miami also has like cap space things where they might want to try and maintain space, but they're going to have to make decisions on Hero. They're going to have to make decisions on Norm Powell. Like, you know, Jovic is honestly like the least of their concerns, hilariously.
Yeah, they have some stuff to figure out.
Okay. That's everybody. You know, I don't think Peyton Watson extends. Like, I think that that's where they're going to draw the line in Denver is be like, hey, let's see what Peyton Watson is. Ty Washington, Pat Baldwin, options declined. Wendell Moore no longer with the team. Marjon Beauchamp and David Roddy, options declined. So, like, a lot of these guys, this ended up being like kind of a messy back half of the second round.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And like, I saw a couple people in the comments note that like, oh, this was supposed to be a weak draft and all this stuff. And I was like, it kind of played out that way. Like, in all honesty, it's very rare where you have this many players get their options declined. And then additionally, you even look through the second round. I mean, shit, man, like Nembhard's a stud, but Jalen Williams and Max Christie look pretty good. Jaden Hardy might be something, might not be. And then after that, it's Moussa Diabate and Vince Williams and like maybe guys like Luke Travers and Jabari Walker at some point, and that's really it. So I wouldn't have called this a particularly strong draft at the end of the day.
For sure.
Okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack, Pistons Pulse podcast, and of course, right here, the Game Theory podcast with the Sam Vecenie.
We will be back later this week. We have something fun scheduled, hopefully. We will let you know because obviously we're waiting for Kuminga. We're waiting for more Kawhi stuff. You just never know what the timing is going to look like, but we have some good, fun preview stuff slated for the 2025-26 NBA season over the next couple of weeks. That's all we got. So go to The Athletic, keep me employed over there. Until next time, we'll talk soon.